Cam Rising dispels a rumor his recovery is going poorly, but will he be ready for the Florida Gators game? And what tier of college quarterbacks does Cam Rising belong in? That and more on today's Locked On.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. And on today's show, we're talking Cam's recovery and where he ranks in what tier in particular amongst college quarterbacks. And in order to help me do all of that, it's friend of the show, Ryan McDonald of the Deseret News. And Ryan, just first starting with Cam and his recovery, this became a topic of conversation again because someone with zero sources, I love when people do this on Twitter, zero sources, just basically tweeted out that Cam's recovery had a setback and all these different things. And then Cam tweeted out his recovery, that Cam tweeted out a gif of Samuel L. Jackson implying like, oh, that's news to me. Like he was surprised. I thought it was a perfect response. And the person who tweeted that, there's been some other past tweets of theirs that kind of surfaced again, where it was kind of like some of them take shots at Cam Rising, other false things they've said that didn't come true as well. So once again, not really with the source, but I still think it's noteworthy that Cam still commented on his recovery. I think it's cool that he did. That kind of shot down. It hasn't going well. We had Porter Larson on this show just last week, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago, and he said that barring any setbacks, Cam's on pace. He should be ready to go a few weeks before fall camp starts, and everything's looking good right now. So I mean, I'm gonna go with Porter Larson over a random Twitter person basically, and everything we've heard from Cam too is that his recovery is going well. We'll see how it all goes out, but as of right now, Ryan, I think he's gonna be ready for the Florida game.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me, with regardless of the accuracy of that or not. That was a surprise to see that there's been a potential hiccup in his recovery, just because everything that I've seen and heard has been that, yeah, if anything, he's maybe ahead of schedule, maybe ahead of. Yeah. And so that would be really hard as an athlete to not respond to everything negative that is said about you. But that was interesting that Cam took that opportunity today. And I think this is a situation that it probably was pretty, yeah, I'm going to respond to this one, because we'll see, I guess. But yeah, that was a surprise to me. I'll put it that way. That was a surprise to me today to see the insinuation that there's been setbacks and whatnot.
Yeah, that is one of the things as an athlete, you don't like when people speak on, in general, people don't like just in life. You don't like when anyone says anything negative about you or speaks on something they know nothing about. So that's where it does get tempting to jump back. And even just when you get negative comments, I know with this podcast and YouTube show, I get frustrated with the negative comments. I wanted to clap back at everyone. And even I've gotten to the point where it's like, you know what, you're fighting a battle you're never going to win with some people anyways too. And I do appreciate all of you who spend, I do enjoy debating with you guys in the comments. I just ask you to keep it respectful, even though it's not going to always be the case regardless. But look, this is great for Utah that Cam is kind of on track and on schedule. Florida is a little bit of a mess, at least right now, in terms of their quarterback situation and just the way the season ended for them last year. But this is still an SEC team, and they still have some very talented players on their roster. They are more than capable of coming into Rice Eccles Stadium and getting a win, but it's still a game Utah should win. They haven't lost a true home game since 2018. If Cam Rising, Brant Keithy are healthy, I expect them to beat Florida.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, being at home, I think Cam is the question mark. I still think that's until he's out there. As much as I believe the idea that he's at least on schedule, if not ahead of schedule, you never know. Until guys get the pads on and get under get. And the lights are on and it's a live game. You never know exactly how they're going to come back, especially from an an injury like he had. But yeah, if I agree with that notion that if he's healthy and ready to go, I think they should beat Florida.
Yeah, another thing too to note with Cam Rising's recovery and everything is, look, he obviously tore his ACL. That was at the Rose Bowl. Had short surgery shortly after. If you're looking at the timeline of when he had surgery, when he suffered the injury and everything, most people it takes them 6 to 9 months to recover from this injury. Florida game, is a little over 8 months after his surgery when you target the Florida game and everything there too. So that's why I think you hear a lot of people saying, no, he's going to be good to come back a little bit early and be able to practice, because not only is that right in the average timeline, but we're also not talking about an average person. We're talking about Cam Rising, who has a very strong lower body. College athletes in general are a little on a different timeline themselves in terms of what a normal person is able to do. So I do think that part of it is important to factor in too, like that he conditions himself. This is his full-time job, right? Is recovering and getting back to fall. A lot of people will tear their ACL, still got to go to their 9 to 5, still have to do maybe other obligations for life. They can't devote as much recovery to rest and recovery as athletes do, their bodies just in general. So I think especially with an injury, this is where modern medicine and everything can come into play, that I do think had Cam suffered this injury like 10 years ago, I would be even more concerned about his potential to meet this date. But because of where we're at with modern medicine, because we're talking about Cam Rising, an exceptional Division I athlete too, and a really good quarterback who's got a strong body, that's another reason I feel good about him being able to come back shorter than the 9 months, that kind of max recovery. And once again, just making the Florida game.
Yeah. And I think another thing about Cam too, I don't think he's going to be dumb and
Yes.
hurry back unwisely. But that being said, he's a gamer. Like, he's the guy who's trucking dudes and his helmet flying off. What game
Mhm.
is that? Well, like,
Yeah, Pac-12 championship.
yep, yep. And that's what I thought it was, but I was like, I'm not positive. So but yeah, so he's a gamer. And so I think he's probably going to do everything that he can to come back. And yet, like I said, I do also think especially at this point in his career, he's also, I think, smart enough to listen to his body and not, hurry back. But yeah, I get the feeling he's going to do everything he possibly can to get back as soon as possible.
I absolutely agree. And look, I trust him. I trust the recovery staff. I feel like Cam will be ready to go. I feel good if it is Bryson Barnes or Brandon Rose. Utah is still capable of beating Florida, because this is, once again, it's not a Florida team that's coming in with Anthony Richardson. They're coming in with Graham Mertz, a guy who really struggled in Wisconsin. One of the rare quarterbacks I've personally seen kind of peak in his first game I think he ever started. Still remember that Thursday night against Nebraska. We're like, is this guy, like, he had Mahomes tweeting. We're like, this guy's incredible. Is he the next dude in the quarterback in the Big Ten? And now he's over on Florida too. So still a very capable, really good Florida team. This Utah team cannot sleep on them, but one that you can win without Cam. If you have Cam there, I think you feel much stronger about your potential to win there too. So it's going to be interesting, exciting to see how it all plays out. And look, the reason we feel like Cam is capable of beating a team like Florida is because he's a high caliber college football quarterback. But where does he belong in the tiers of college football quarterbacks? That is what we're going to be talking about in a moment. But first, we got to talk to you guys a little bit more about our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on all the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to join today. Don't miss your chance to snag a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. You guys can bet on everything. If you think Shohei Ohtani is going to keep it up, if you think the best player on your team is going to continue it, if they're getting a little bit of a funk, or they're going to break out of it, if your team's going to be able to keep their momentum going, if they're headings, a lot of fun stuff for you to get into at FanDuel. So don't miss your chance once again at FanDuel.com/lockedon for that free $1,000. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademark used with permission. Ryan, looking over now to the state of college football and all the quarterbacks that occupy it, Bruce Feldman and Stuart Mandel of The Athletic recently compiled their list of college football quarterbacks, and they placed them into tiers. We're going to talk about the top 4 tiers. This is something you recently wrote an article on too. Tier 1 is Caleb Williams. I have absolutely zero qualms with that. Caleb Williams is incredible, remarkable player. Tier 2 is Drake May and Michael Penix. I think that's fair. I actually think tier 2 is missing a couple of quarterbacks personally, but then we get into tier 3. So this is where I'm like, yeah, Cam's not in tier 1, tier 2. Cam's going to be in tier 3, right? I was proven wrong. I was very surprised to look and find Cam Rising in tier 4 over a few quarterbacks. So first of all, I'm just going to say, and we can talk about the guys specifically in a moment. I believe Cam, personally, I think he's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in college football coming back. I believe at the worst, he's one of the 15 best when you look at what he's accomplished. Look, I understand some guys can throw. Their highlight tapes might look a little bit better than Cam Rising. Cam Rising takes care of the ball. He moves the chains. He makes things happen when you're talking about Cam Rising. So that's where personally, I feel like he does belong in this tier 3 with these guys. Do you feel like Cam is a tier 3 quarterback?
That's kind of where I was expecting him to, I think, as I was going down the list, and I probably figured that he would be in 3. Let's see, there's I guess 8 that they put in tier 3. So yeah, this, but this puts him in, the top 11 or so 11 to 20 or so quarterbacks, which is about where he probably is, and I guess depending on if we're talking about just based on past production or based on what we think he's going to do this
Yeah,
year, I think, again, that ACL is always going to be a question,
that's true.
until he gets out there and proves that he's good, all totally healthy and back to his old self. There's some questions there, maybe, but again, I go back to Cam's a gamer. That do, beyond physical abilities, beyond all that. I think he knows how to win football games, and I think that should count for something in terms of, when you're talking about the country's best quarterbacks.
Yeah, stats tell part of the story, right? When you see the guy threw for 4,000 yards. But I want to know, like, it's the fourth quarter, your team's got the ball down to, like, how many guys played a game as impressive as Cam did against the USC last season? I
Yeah.
just don't think everyone that's, because like I said, Cam's over in tier 4. I don't think everyone in tier 3 is capable of that kind of a performance week in and week out. And let's talk about some of the guys in the tier 3 now. And I will also say that, like, some of the names I'm going to go through, I actually like the one that stands out to me is I think Bo Nix, and I like Jordan Travis a lot too. Jordan Travis is in tier 4 with Cam. I would have zero issue if Bo Nix, and personally, I would have Bo Nix in like that tier 2 with those guys. And I might even have Jordan Travis up there as well. So those are two guys that I think this list is a little low on. But the other guys are guys I absolutely feel like that Cam belongs in the discussion with. When you're talking about Jaden Daniels, I think he's right there. Jaden Daniels and look, I know he transferred and everything. Had a very up and down season with LSU. Let's not forget this LSU team too, led by Jaden Daniels, suffered one of the worst late season losses last year when they went and lost to Texas A&M, who was one of the most disappointing teams in college football based on preseason hype we'd ever seen. You get KJ Jefferson there as well. I like KJ Jefferson. I think he's a good quarterback, but like, I mean, that Arkansas team really fell off at different points in the season last year, and Jefferson's struggles were part of that too. JJ McCarthy's here. I personally look, I know McCarthy got Michigan to the college football playoff, but this is also where the notion of like the quarterback not carrying, right? Caleb Williams carries USC, right? And there, Lincoln Riley, there's other offense pieces there, right? But we know what the defense is. Michigan had a really good defense. They had an outstanding rushing attack. They've had the back-to-back top offensive line in the country. That's where I just don't watch JJ McCarthy play, and he wasn't great against TCU. And I'm like, oh yeah, that guy's a whole tier better than Cam Rising. I think they belong in the same one. And a lot of these guys you get in here, you get Frank Harris from UTSA, Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina, a Michael Pratt from Tulane as well. And another guy too, like in Devin Leary in Kentucky. And I know he was hurt the last time he was at NC State too, but I just look at all those guys and I'm like, oh, if they were Utah's quarterback, it's not like I'm like, oh man, we're even in a better spot than we are now. If anything, I'd feel worse just because I've seen Cam do it week in and week out. And I just think there's something to be said, Ryan, of going against Power 5 competition week in and week out, the best of the best over and over again, rather than Group of 5 competition like a Conference USA and some of these guys go through. Frank Harris, McCall, all these guys, they're very good college quarterbacks. I just think they should be in tier 4, or heck, they can be in tier 3. I just don't think they belong ahead of Cam Rising.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say, and I might be getting ahead of you, but as much as Cam not being in tier 3, I do think he's better than a lot of the people in tier 4. And so who knows, maybe it was one of those deals where Feldman and Mandel were debating, oh, should we put Cam in tier 3? Maybe,
Yeah.
who knows that.
And you make a great point on the injury as well, factoring into this potentially. That is, I wish they would have included that in the article. Like, oh, Cam would have been here, because they offered explanations for a few of them. They just decided not to for Cam as well. But sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
Yeah, no, you're good. And so, yeah, we don't know exactly what went into that, and as I mentioned before, and as you just mentioned, I think, especially with quarterbacks, obviously the most important position on the field,
It
like,
is.
um, how much do those intangibles matter? Or are they just looking at raw talent, or how much does, hey, this guy has the guts to lead game-winning drives, like we've seen Cam do, and so I guess we don't know everything that exactly went into their determining list, but I am with you that I think he maybe in that tier 3, with Bo Nix, maybe, and it's hard because it's like
It is hard.
how big do you make the tiers, and
Mhm.
and all that stuff. But no, I think I think he's proven to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, no doubt.
That's where this just gets hard because, like you said, every quarterback is asked to do different things in their offense. There's different things you can look at. Look, I'm sure a lot of these guys we just rolled through, they have a stronger arm than Cam Rising. As I said, their highlights look better. They have maybe more 400-yard passing games, all those kind of things. But once again, just at the end of the day, the goal of football is to win, and Cam Rising is a winner. He is. Yes, he put Utah on his back against USC the first time around, but like he hasn't been like the sole reason Utah's been winning, as we mentioned with like a Caleb Williams. But Utah, there's so many games in all their big games, pretty much they won last season. And look, he didn't play great against the Oregon game, but he was a little hurt during that. It's kind of an aberration when you look at his career games overall. Like I look at the USC game, even the second time around, they're down 17-3, and it's about to be halftime, like 2.5 minutes to go in that game. Cam leads them on 2 drives, and just like that, they go into the break with the lead. Actually, I think it was 14-3 or whatever it was, but Utah went into the break with the lead, ended up going in that situation. Those are just kind of games and moments where, once again, just Cam continues to bring his best required. So I'm not having him over Caleb Williams. I'm not putting him over Drake Bay. I'm not putting him over Michael Penix Jr. I personally, like I said, I actually don't know if I'd put him over Jordan Travis. Even when you look at what Jordan Travis has done, is capable of doing, I think that one's fair. I would not put him over Bo Nix off the season Bo Nix has had, but I think just about anyone else on this list I can make a legit argument for. I mean, even a Jaden Daniels. I know a lot of people really like Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is still very up and down. That LSU team had a very up and down and strange season. Everyone got crushed by Georgia, so I'm not going to put that one at him, but I already mentioned the A&M game. And I've seen a lot of Jaden Daniels too, just back when he was a Pac-12 quarterback too. That's another one where I'm like, I just don't know. That's where I think this stuff gets really interesting. And just to me, the 2 in particular in tier 4, I look, actually there's 3. I look at, because I think Sam Hartman at Notre Dame, I'm surprised he's in tier 4 as well, because Hartman's a guy coming over and joining the Fighting Irish too, that he did a lot of really productive things at Wake Forest. So I expect him to have a monster season. And I just feel like a lot of these guys, like the Grayson McCalls, the Frank Harrises, the Pratt, if they were on the level of a Cam Rising like that, I feel like more of these Power 5 programs in the age of NIL would have thrown a ton of money at them, and we would see those guys on a Florida as per se a Graham Mertz. Now, I think these guys are better than Graham Mertz as a highlighted, but I just think that more so speaks to like, hey, the fact that they're still on these teams speaks they're very good quarterbacks, but the top coaches in college football weren't like, no, I need to get this guy to be my next quarterback. And I think there's a lot of teams that would have loved if Cam Rising entered the portal. They would have gone after a guy like him who's just all he's done is win in his college career.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think you bring it in, that's always going to be a problem in college football, is you're going to have really good G5 teams, really good G5 players, and how do you compare G5 and those really good G5 teams and players with P5 teams and players. You had Cincinnati a couple years ago, who made the play, and so obviously they're in a P5 now, but do we call the Big 12 P5 on this show? I'm just
Yes,
I'm just kidding.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
But yeah, so I think that's gonna always be a problem in college football is how you compare the G5s with the P5s, but I do agree with you that a lot of these guys, the G5 guys, and um, it's hard. It's hard. How can you compare Frank Harris with Cam Rising? When they've kind of had different college football experiences in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of who they've played, the type of things they're asked to do, it's completely different. That's where it's hard. And I got a ton of respect for Stuart Mandel and Bruce Feldman too. I think they're both incredible at what they do. This is no different than like when your friend just says something you disagree with. That's where I'm just kind of like, I disagree with this. And the other nice thing this serves as to me, Ryan, is this is perfect bulletin board material, right? Like you look at this and people, Cam Rising will be like, oh, they don't think I'm on. Like Cam's even the type of guy, like he'll be like, oh, you don't think I'm on the level of Caleb Williams, even though I beat him twice. Like that's, if I was Cam Rising, that's what I would be saying. I'm like, oh, you think Michael Penix is better? I'm the back-to-back Pac-12 champ. Like just more motivation, like proving people wrong. I think that's where these lists serve very well. And the players act like they don't care and they don't look at it. But then at the end of the season, you get the Georgia footballs of the world who are like, we were projected to win 5 games. And it's like, well, I don't know who in the world said that, but like, okay, just go off then. Yeah. Like they see this stuff and they keep track of it. So I'm excited to see the year Cam has. It all comes back to his health though, tying this full circle. So hopefully Cam is ready to go for the Florida game. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what he is capable of doing. Ryan, Ryan, what do you have coming up with the Deseret news?
We're right now immediately as we're recording this.
This will come out post an NBA draft. I do want to let you know.
Post NBA draft.
Yes, I should have let you know that earlier.
So yeah, it drafts up, and then it is kind of ramping up for college football. We'll have NBA free agency stuff, but that'll be July, and then kind of come August, it's college football. Let's go, and
let's
then
go. Exactly. Speaking our language here, we're getting closer.
and then the fall is crazy, obviously, with college football. So we're gearing up.
We absolutely are. Well, we appreciate you spending time with us as always, Ryan. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes, but we'll be back tomorrow talking more Utah football and in particular taking a look at some of the top recruits in the state. We'll see you then on Locked On Utes.